Hey guys, it's Stephen here back with another opposition preview. We're going to dive into all things Crystal Palace with Dan from 𝐿𝐴 very, very soon. But first, the new episode of The Playlist is up over on 888 Sport. Let's see what you think about this clip, talking about, two history clubs.
There is no debate
There
between Manchester United and Liverpool. Manchester United are a bigger club than Liverpool Football Club.
Go on, explain how.
In every aspect.
In what? In every aspect? In terms of what?
In
Trophies?
Trophy
collection?
In terms of...
in terms of trophies?
Fan bases,
1 second. In terms of trophies?
History,
in terms of trophies?
In terms of...
In terms of trophies.
What?
We have more trophies than you.
Trophies? Do you want
we have more trophies than you.
We are a bigger...
No. We have more trophies in our club than you have in your club. Fact.
That doesn't mean you're a bigger football club.
We have more trophies than you.
We've got a bigger fan base than you globally. Even still now.
What does that mean?
It means that we're more well supported than you even though you got more trophies, you're still not more supported.
You know what the definition of real big clubs is? Can I be honest with you? The real definition.
Not being able to win the title since 2013.
When you talk to the real big clubs, so when you talk to Los Blancos, real. When you talk to like the Real Madrids, the Bayern Munich, it's European success. It's you can't even look at me. You look at me straight. That's the real definition of a big club. European success. It is 100%. It is
around the world.
100%.
Can I just interject
around the
very
world.
skillful debating. Very skillful. I like what
He's got to use the best weapons in his armoury.
Oh, bless him. Two old clubs arguing about history and history. That's all it ever will be. For me, I think the answer actually is, by the way, United. I know Liverpool got more trophies, but you go around the world, United, they are bigger these days in terms of like fan base and all that kind of stuff. But I don't ultimately care because guess which team is better? Manchester City Football Club. Go check out that episode of The Playlist over there where they're trying to rank the top 5 biggest clubs in England, and City are on that list in my personal opinion. Go over to the comments. It'll be the link in the description. Go in the comments and give City some love because we don't get enough these days. We never do. As for United and Liverpool, ultimately they're about probably similar size. Probably United, I reckon, maybe because they're probably bigger around the world because the past 20, 30 years. But other than that, I didn't City are the best. That's all I know right now. City are the best. And ultimately, that is all that matters. But go let them know that. Go let them know it on the playlist over there on the YouTube. Full video. It'll be linked in the description below. Anyway, over to the opposition preview. Hey guys, it's Stephen here back with another opposition preview. Manchester City play Crystal Palace tomorrow in a game that I usually dread. I usually do. I've been looking back at the results between City and Palace and it does confirm my sort of inherent fear. We'll go through that all in a little bit, but I've got a special guest today. I've got Dan from the wonderful podcast, the Palace-based and also general Premier League-based podcast, 𝐿𝐴. Dan, welcome to the channel, mate. How you doing? You all right?
I'm very good, thanks. Yourself?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. I'm good. I'm not looking forward to tomorrow, I'll be honest. I know people are thinking that's probably a little bit extreme given I'm a City fan and so on, but you guys do have a good record, don't you, against us in general?
Yeah, I don't reluctant to say we are your bogey team because obviously pride comes before a fall, but you can look back to recent results and see why any City fan would look at it with trepidation. I think we stopped you scoring in both games last year, so,
I was looking
pretty
at results,
impressive from our end, yeah.
And I went back for the last 10 results. I thought that was a decent, reputation. We've only won, I think, 5 out of 10, which is by City standards. That's a relatively low bit of form. And obviously, last season in this fixture, we lost 2-0 to you guys, and Conor Gallagher had a blinder, so did Zaha, and 0-0 as well at Selhurst Park. And you beat us at the Etihad as well for years, back in 2018, 3-2 as well. So, in general, Palace tend to, they do well against us. And right now, I guess, is it fair to say, from your perspective, Palace have got an awful lot to feel happy about and excited about, because things have changed, haven't they, quite a lot over the past couple of years?
Yeah, without a doubt. I've done a different City preview this week, and I said it was 𝐿𝐴 actually.
Yeah.
I said to him that from my perspective, as much as it might seem a little bit OTT from an outsider's point of view, I think this is probably the happiest I've ever been as a Palace fan. I'm 33 years old, and Vieira came in at a time when it was a real transition. We were looking at the end of the Roy Hodgson era. I think we'd become very much pigeonholed by many people as a team that sort of sat very deep and looked to hit on the counter. And we do still play on the counter, but there's a great deal more technical ability, particularly towards our final third. And I think it's just really exciting football, but with the academy on the up and up and Vieira seeming to really buy into what South London as an identity is, I think every Palace fan really is just walking with a spring in their step at the moment.
Well, you mentioned about the technical ability. I mean, Palace, I don't know whether it's fair or not, but the perception was there. Always, as you said, had a reputation of being tough, physical, kind of not the most exciting football. But now you look through that team, and I've got a few of the recent lineups on screen to myself, looking at it, and it's just so many technical, fun players in there, isn't it? Zaha, Eze, you've got people like Mitchell coming through. You've got good central defenders in Anderson and Gay and so on, and then Doucouré's he's a good player as well, and then you got people like Olise on the bench, and it's like and Edouard as well, who's obviously coming on and scoring a goal here and there too. It's just the identity seems to have changed, doesn't it, of what people associate with Palace, and they all seem to be very skillful players. You must be loving people like Eze as well and so on, and watching his development.
Well, it's interesting because obviously last year Conor Gallagher was such a difference maker for us, particularly in the first half of the season. But I mean, it's sort of amusing to me, really. For the last 5 or 6 years, we've pretty much been told by many a neutral that we are a one-man team and that we rely completely on Wilfried Zaha.
Yeah. All
of a sudden, Conor Gallagher comes into the squad. He goes back to Chelsea at the end of last season, and you get people saying, well, you're in trouble now, Conor Gallagher's gone. and that was quite amusing, as I say. But in many ways, you look towards Ebeere Eze. I'm not suggesting that the two of them wouldn't have been able to work in the same midfield, but Eze obviously was injured at the start of last season. He picked up quite a severe injury towards the end of Roy Hodgson's tenure. So it took him a little while to get up to speed with the first team under Patrick Vieira. And now that Conor Gallagher has gone back to Chelsea, we've got Doucouré sitting as a more traditional defensive midfielder, sort of screening things in front of the back four, which allows Eze, in certain senses, to play as a more out-and-out 10. And I think in some ways that is giving him a bit more freedom than we would otherwise have if Conor Gallagher was in that midfield, because he's such a dynamic force and a Duracell bunny in the middle of the park, up and down. So I think it's quite well balanced at the moment, if truth be told.
No, I agree, actually. I do think Conor Gallagher is... been a lot of chats I've seen him about his use at Chelsea already, but I do think he's better when he's a lot further forward, isn't he? When he's you saw that at the Etihad, for example, last season. He was pure chaos when he was pushed up alongside the strikers, basically. Just that energy that he's got, it seems to be at its best in the final third. And Eze seems to be a different kind of player to Conor Gallagher, but he's just pure silk, isn't he, man? He's just such an exciting footballer. And it feels weird that even I want to tune in and watch Palace and watch the football that you play, because it's encouraging. So how have you taken to life under Vieira? How's say someone hadn't watched Palace for a while, what kind of setup does Vieira put under Palace these days, and what kind of football do you guys play?
I think what's quite impressive for me with Vieira is that it would be easy from an outsider's point of view to look at our game against, say, Aston Villa last weekend and say that it's very technical based. We're looking to create a lot of chances, score a lot of goals, and we do have that in the locker in what I would call our sort of bread and butter games, the Villas, the Leeds, Brentfords, etc. But against Liverpool a week or so ago, obviously on a Monday night, we sat deep for the most part and we looked to hit on the counter. And we do still have that sort of defensive organisation and that steel to us. But there is, I call it a counter-attack, because that is in essence what we do look to operate with against sides like Liverpool, Manchester City, well,
So
Chelsea.
not wrong with that.
Yeah. But I mean, you look at the goal at Anfield, it's just a very well-worked counter-attack. It's not a long ball forward that happens to have broken our way. Eze picks the ball up in our own half, he finds an angle, plays the ball through to Wilf that's spot on, and then, he's hit the ball low and hard across Alisson and found the back of the net with probably a yard or so of space to put it in. So it's, genuine ruthlessness from us. And I think having those different strings to our bow means that we can approach different opponents and be just as dangerous, really, which is, for a club that's sort of sitting in mid-table with ideas of potentially breaking into the top half, having different tools to crack different nuts is certainly something that's been a pleasant surprise under Vieira's guidance.
I actually agree with that. I think there's an awful lot is made these days about having essentially a project and a certain style of play and so on. And I really admire teams that can mix it up every now and then, because you have to be relatively pragmatic. And I don't mean to be patronising, but Palace obviously don't have the quality of that City do, where we can play our game pretty much every single week, and because we've got such good footballers, we're allowed to do that. But when you're away at Anfield, you have to make the odd concession here and there, don't you? You have to allow for their quality, and if you can do that, you can sit back and essentially frustrate them and get the goal on the counter with good football, but then play someone like Villa and outpass them and outplay them, and then that to me is I would say that's a sign of a good coach. That pragmatism.
I think he picks his battles well. As much as you don't want to go into granular detail from a fan point of view, because obviously we aren't flies on the wall every week. I think it's quite clear that there is a specific tactical plan for every opponent. It's not a one-size-fits-all thing. But I mean, I saw numerous people saying that once Liverpool went down to 10 men, we should have really put our foot on their throats and got the 3 points. But it's not as straightforward as that, because the crowd got up for it, and there was a real, sense of injustice from their part, even though Nunez has headbutted Anderson. I mean, we won't go there. But I think mainly, if you'd have taken a point beforehand, regardless of the red card away at Anfield, you'd have taken every Palace fan saying, we'd bite your hand off for that. And it will be the same tomorrow, regardless of how the game pans out. You have to look at the bigger picture for me, and obviously, regardless of our previous record against you, anything other than the defeat has to be celebrated, really.
No, I think that's totally fair and reasonable. I mean, what has been your personal sense of satisfaction with the start so far? So I'm going through the results now, of course. 2-0 the open day of the season must have been a little bit frustrating, but Arsenal, a good team. And I didn't watch the game, but I've seen the stats, and you didn't do too badly by the looks of it. It looks like you had a pretty decent show of it. And then obviously the draw against Liverpool, and then the 3-1 victory of Villa. Have you been happy so far with the start of the season?
I think if you go back to before the season kicked off, we've got statistically the hardest start in terms of the teams that we're playing at the beginning with their final league position at the end of last season. Obviously, we've got yourselves this weekend. I think we've got Chelsea relatively soon after. And I think, Arsenal specifically for me was a very, very difficult game to come straight into, because they're a team that are really evolving, I think, under Mikel Arteta. They've got a young group there. Obviously, Jesus and Zinchenko have come in from yourselves. They've given them real experience, and they were bang up for it. I think towards the back end of last season, they played us at Selhurst. We beat them 3-0, and it wasn't a fluke by any means. We just outfought them all over the pitch. So they would have been desperate to sort of make amends for that. But as you said, as much as you didn't watch it, we were 1-0 down and really pushing for an equaliser in the second half. They've ended up scoring late on. But I don't think 2-0 really did the performance justice.
Yeah.
But for me, we've got Brentford coming up on Tuesday after this game at the weekend. That's at Selhurst. So even if we do lose to yourselves, if you follow that up against Brentford with 3 points, you suddenly got 7 points on the board, and you're looking very, very strong, I think, after a genuinely difficult start. So it's more for me about making sure we don't go on long runs with, consecutive defeats, and that we are constantly putting points on the board as and when we can. And I think that's something that Vieira is very adept at, really.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I've been looking at your fixtures, and it isn't easy, is it, that opening at all? And I guess you're looking at around October, where things should, in theory, become a lot more manageable. Because then you've got running games where it's, Leeds, Leicester, which, good teams, Wolves, Everton, Southampton, that is a lot more manageable. Obviously, really, when you go through those teams, by the way, you realise God, the Premier League is good. There's a lot of good teams in this league. You think even like the ones I'm going, it's only Southampton, but then it's Southampton, it's still got quality. But looking forward to tomorrow now. What kind of setup are you expecting tomorrow from Vieira and Palace? I mean, is anyone you think is almost nailed on to start and so on? Do you think there'll be any changes? Because I've noticed sometimes you played Eduardo up front, sometimes you played Zaha. How are you expecting Vieira and Palace to approach the game tomorrow?
I would imagine it would be a very similar setup to how we went to Anfield. Not just because you've got two sides that are, stereotypically looked at as title chasers, but it worked pretty well for the most part in the first hour or so. I think Zaha is a key component in that now, because as much as he's predominantly a left-sided attacker, he's really added a coolness to his finishing. I mean, if you look at the goal he scored against Aston Villa last weekend, it's pretty much a carbon copy of the finish from up at Anfield.
A beautiful goal.
And to take those as quickly as he did in both instances and find that bottom corner, he said post-match after both games that he's looking to shoot before the keeper has an opportunity to set himself. But the fact that he's getting to that level now where he backs himself to get in on goal and take those chances is something that I'm sure Patrick Vieira is looking at and thinking that he can do a job up front again on the break. It's going to be interesting to me to see whether or not 𝐌𝐞𝐫𝐿 plays a more prominent role than he has in the opening 3 games, because he's coming back from an injury that he picked up, I think, at the back end of last season. But he is a magical footballer. I mean, I've said to numerous people in the last 12 months, as much as you can look towards Zaha and Eze and Edouard, 𝐌𝐞𝐫𝐿, for his age, is just mind-bogglingly good. I don't think it's not often I'll get a player at Palace and think that guy is just nailed on too good for us. But within 2 years, I fully expect him to be at a Champions League club playing regularly, because it's not just his natural ability. He's got a ridiculously ruthless approach to football. He's just, in a strange way, selfish and not for the team, but not in a way where you sort of resent it, because he sort of backs up exactly what he's trying to do. And you can look towards the second goal that he had last season. He's run to sort of put you on the back foot. He then gets the ball back from Zaha and puts this lovely little cushion touch into 𝐿𝐿𝐴𝐻𝐿. And just to have that presence of mind and that calmness in the penalty area as a teenager at that point is just, as I say, mind-boggling. So hopefully he gets some more minutes tomorrow and makes a difference to the game, because I think in that particular fixture, we were 1-0 up and he brought him on with 10, 15 minutes to go, which to me felt like not necessarily suicide, but it was definitely a roll of the dice. Yeah. But I think when you see what he can actually do in the final third, sort of scaring defences, it's sort of the best form of defence's attack, really.
I was looking at his Wikipedia page as you're talking. I didn't realise he was at City as a kid briefly. I had no idea about that.
Yeah, for a little while. I'm not sure how long.
He's had a hell of a youth career, Arsenal, Chelsea, City, and then after Reading for a bit before, obviously, you guys. But I didn't realise that. That's interesting. I actually think as well with 𝐿𝐴𝐻𝐿 and Eze and Zaha and so on, I'm not sure if you saw the Newcastle game, but City's undoing was tricky wingers, with pace and skill and elegance on the counter. So that's the kind of thing where against Newcastle, that was a clear weakness for us, and I wouldn't be surprised if, I don't want it to happen, obviously, for as a City fan, but if Palace could get some joy against City, it could be using the intelligence and the attacking guile of the likes of Eze, Zaha, and 𝐿𝐴𝐻𝐿 and so on. So that's something to pay attention to. Then we come to the bit that everyone does, which everyone hates doing. But what's your heart saying? What's your head saying for tomorrow in terms of prediction?
So I've sort of made a bit of a promise to myself this season. I'm not gonna do the negative predictions, because I just don't think it's right. I think,
go your heart.
What is the point of having a football fandom and talking about it on a daily basis and not believing that you can pull off these results, especially against Man City, because we've done it in the past. So, against Liverpool, I did a preview pod for one of them, and I said that I fancied us to win 1-0 on the break, probably through Zaha, and it almost came to fruition. So I will go with exactly the same prediction. 1-0 win, probably after about 20 or 30 minutes, and then hanging on by the seat of our pants for the next hour, but managing to grind it out. I can't go with anything else other than that, unfortunately.
No, I don't believe that's why I always say when people go do one for your head and one for your heart, because I always think it's interesting to see what thing. But do you know what? I hope you're horrifically wrong and have a terrible day tomorrow. Dan, thank you so much for joining us, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure, guys. You've seen the logo on the screen next to me right now. Go check out the 𝐿𝐴𝐻𝐿𝐴 podcast. Hopkin, looking to kill one. Dan's over there doing wonderful stuff, and you probably follow him on Twitter already. If you don't, the link will be in the description and all the usual stuff. Dan, thank you very much for coming on once again, mate.
No worries. Good luck.
Guys, thanks very much, and I'll see you tomorrow, of course, for all the usual stuff. My match preview should be up at the same time around. Go check it. Do all the usual stuff, like the video. Let me know in the comments what you make of Dan's prediction, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel as well, and I'll catch you all very, very soon. Cheers.